Britain is now apparently the Western capital for Sharia courts. Britain has quietly become the Western capital for Sharia courts, with around 85 Islamic councils now operating within the country, offering religious rulings on marriage, divorce, and inheritance that often leave women at a severe disadvantage. While Muslim men can instantly divorce wives through the controversial practice of triple talaq, women must plead their case before these all male panels, sometimes facing religious coercion. Quote, it should be remembered that Sharia courts only exist because Muslim women need them to obtain a religious divorce, warns the National Secular Society chief executive Stephen Evans. Reports have emerged of men using religious texts to pressure wives into submission, with some women even advised to enter so called pleasure marriages. Meanwhile, modern apps now allow Muslim men to specify up to four wives in their Islamic wills, further entrenching gender disparities. Despite growing concerns, the British government insists, quote, Sharia law does not form any part of the law in England and Wales. But for thousands of women trapped in these unofficial courts, the reality tells a different story. So, this is a huge problem that's been going down. And this is something that began in the early 80s in Britain. That's my understanding because we are friends with several activists who have lived in the UK for decades, and that's what they tell me, that some of them were even Muslims around the time of when these were first being established, and they were practicing Muslims, and they saw the first Sharia courts being established in the early 80s. And some people I know, they would talk about how they didn't like it at that time, especially because in their experience at that time, um, the average Muslim was not actually that conservative. But gradually, the establishments of these courts and increasing numbers of courts over time have influenced the public to become more and more conservative. Because um, what's the word I'm looking for? They validate the more conservative approaches to the faith. They promote more conservative approaches to the faith. They pressure people to stay within the bounds of of being more conservative. Um, and it's had a very negative, toxic effect. I mean, activist Miriam Namazi has had a movement called the One Law for All campaign that's been going on in the UK for a very long time. She's been pushing to end this kind of thing in the UK for a very long time. And it's not just even Muslim Sharia courts. I mean, there are Sikh religious courts, there are Jewish religious courts. So, I'm gonna be completely honest. People are like, "Oh, ban them, shut them down." I personally have no problem with that because I have no problem with banning, and I think to actually end it, you will need to criminalize probably um religious arbitration. Because the government will come out and say, "Oh, Sharia law does not form any part of the law in England and Wales." Sure, sure, but this is not a matter of what is on the books. This is a matter of what is a group forming a separate society and ruling amongst themselves and exerting control amongst themselves. Um so this is not a question of if Sharia law is part of British law. This is a question if you allow these courts to exert power and influence and control over citizens in addition to British law. Um, but to be honest, I have no idea how you end this practice without doing the exact same for all religions in the UK. And I think if you did that, um, there'd be huge backlash to doing so, to be completely honest.
There there is no other religion that is trying to make a parallel legal structure.
That's not true. That's not true. There's Sikh religious courts, there are Jewish religious systems, religious jurisprudence systems.
Okay, well, that all of that needs to be shut down. I mean, this
Yeah.
is
Well,
historically
okay,
considered.
imagine trying to do that and how the Orthodox Jewish community would feel in the UK. I mean, it's not gonna go down well.
So fuck.
Let's be completely
Well, they
honest.
could. Yeah, this is the most. The, first of all, even if they exist, I'm sure it's not to the degree that we are dealing with these Islamists, right?
In some communities.
However, yeah, however, they all should be shut down. I mean, historically, this has been the greatest threat from within a nation, trying to create a. So here's the thing: there's two types of um, religious courts. One, and I don't like either one of them, but one of them is worse than the other one, right? So if you have some religious courts that are part that the state recognizes it and gives licenses to them and is officially recognized by the legal structure of the country as something that the state allows and has licensed and has come up with a framework for, I don't like that, but that's separate from something that your community is starting without it without it being part of the legal structure that the government is introducing to society. And this second one is, they are both bad in my opinion, but this second one is far far worse. Like for example, in Israel, we have Islamic courts, right? But we don't but and I don't like that, but that is not as bad as what we're seeing in the UK, because the Islamic courts in the UK, in Israel, is part of a legal structure officially recognized by the government and provided with a legal framework. So you have license, you have to you have to go through certain hoops to be approved and blah 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 and all of that, right? But this is something that is not even part of the framework of the government. This is just made up by these communities.
Mhm.
And this parallel legal structure that is not even recognized by the government, that is, the fact that they even allowed it to this point is insane, because that this is so I'm not gonna call it with the same vocabulary that I used to before, because you explained it to me and that was wrong vocabulary. I was convinced by you, but it is still, it's not a threat from outside, but it's actually even worse. It's a threat from within. It's a greater threat from within to undermine the legal. What is a nation other than a legal framework?
Yeah.
the
No, I'm
legal
with you.
the legal framework of a nation defines a nation. So introducing undermining the legal structure of your nation is an attack on the nation. This should have been illegal from even. I mean, historically, governments have been very, very sensitive to this. Governments have been see introducing parallel legal structures to the legal structure that they recognize since ancient time was considered an attack on the nation. So I don't understand why this was allowed. I mean, even within the legal framework that we have, if we have somebody that acts like a that they're a lawyer and they don't have the license, that is a so anybody practicing law without having the license is considered to be a criminal. That's a crime,
Yeah, it's
right?
fraudulent.
How Yes. However, these people have managed to. Uh, I mean, they don't call it court; they call it Sharia councils, and they don't call it law, even though Sharia has law in it.
Yeah, yeah,
Sharia
yeah,
just means
yeah.
Islamic law, right? But just by and then like they are basically practicing law. Like this is two tier. If I was in the UK and I was practicing law by calling it law, and I wasn't a lawyer and I didn't have the license or any of the things that I need to have to practice law, I would go to jail. But I could practice Sharia, which is law, and for some reason I don't go to jail. That's two tier. Yeah, and also yeah, Kenny saying Sharia law means law. No, Sharia law means Islamic law. Yeah, the law is unnecessary for, but only if you speak Arabic. For a lot of people who don't know what Sharia means, the
Mhm.
law is clarifying. It's fine to add law
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
I just I struggle to think about how you can end this practice in a way that is consistent with liberal principles because I mean, it's easy for me because I'm an atheist. I could just be shut it all down. I don't care. I don't like any of it. But me being an intelligent person, I realized that if there was a movement to do such a thing, it would unite the interfaith community in many ways, and they would never let this happen. There would be an interfaith push to allow all people to keep these kinds of court systems. And I don't think people with our mentality would have enough political capital to push it through, to be quite honest. I'm not even a UK citizen, so my opinion doesn't matter. But in theory, I think that would be a major issue, a major barrier.
So I think it's illiberal to allow this, right? Liberalism
No,
is
I agree. But I mean,
founded
within a
upon, yeah.
democratic power structure.
Yes, yes. So you might say it's liberal to ban these, but the argument is that maybe we don't have the power to do so as of right now. That's what you're
Yeah,
saying.
that's a
Okay,
better way of putting
the
it.
the, the political capital, right?
Hmm.
But just so to defend liberalism, liberalism is founded upon the rule of law, and nothing threatens liberalism more than challenging the rule of law and creating a parallel legal system that is not even approved by the government is the greatest challenge to the rule of law. So somebody is saying, Armin, what if the court would only apply in marriage issues as long as it's following the nation's laws? Okay, so that is, I don't like that. I like one rule for all, but that is
Yeah.
so much better than this. This what you're suggesting is what we have in Israel, for example, which I don't like because it violates secularism and one rule for everyone. But that is better than what's happening in the UK, because at least that is within the framework that is being approved with it by the government, that is being monitored by the government, that is being licensed by the government, that has the stamp of approval of the nation state, the official nation state at hand, that we're dealing with, rather than something that is completely ignoring all of that structure. Yeah.
Yeah, so Vic the Brave is saying presumably Sharia would always be subject to overrule by British law or not, if not how. So it already is, but the idea is that these communities are ruling amongst themselves. So naturally you do have rights under British law, but they're choosing to organize themselves around a different law system.
Hmm.
And
So you
so
know what?
what can you do when people are organically doing so willingly?
See, the law is nothing but a piece of paper without the enforcement power. Okay, so the law is actually the enforcement power behind it, not the law itself. Because I could just write a law right now, but I don't have a police, I don't have an army. So what does it mean, right? So the fact that we have a parallel legal structure in the UK, it means that they also have an enforcement power behind it. The fact that we are just talking about political power, the fear of what happens if we enforce such a thing. That means that it's not just that the Islamic community in the UK, it's not just that they're introducing a law, it also means that they have power. They have enforcement power. The fact that this law is even enforceable is a demonstration of another bigger threat, the
Yeah.
political capital and the enforcement power that it is behind it.
What I struggle with is like, something I've thought about a lot is what happens in ultra orthodox or orthodox Jewish communities with the issue. I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce it, like agunat, which means chained woman, which is a woman who is seeking a divorce or left her husband, but only he can grant her a divorce. And when he does not grant her divorce, doesn't matter how long it is, it could be decades. Until then, she is considered chained to him. She is a chained woman. And I we've covered some of the stories like that in the past, and those scenarios are always very confusing to me, especially, I mean, obviously as an atheist, I'm like, well, none of what does this mean, a chained woman? Like, you can none of that is real according to the nation that you live in. Well, say for in America, right? This happens to women in America. And I get confused because I'm like, well, just leave the religion. Like, who cares? This is like a made up rule. But it's easy for me to think that way because one, I'm an atheist and it all seems very arbitrary for me. I'm not a believer. And if you really are a real believer and you want to stay that way, then I guess you are chained. I don't know what you do. If you choose to believe in the authority of that is not the authority of
Mm.
the law and the land, I guess yeah, as Dia saying, it only works if you go along with it. So me being me, I'm like, well, why just how about you just don't go along with it? However, the problem is one, in very high control communities, which
Right.
does apply in these cases, it's very difficult to leave a high control religious community. It's extremely difficult. I wouldn't wish that experience on anyone, and many people in our community have gone through this experience. That being said, it's even worse if you're in a Muslim high control community. Let's be
Yeah.
completely honest. So, as much as I struggle with the idea of being a chained woman in a high control Jewish setting, it's even worse if you're in a high control Muslim setting because the violence. Let's be honest. How many of our
Well,
friends living in the UK have survived honor killing attempts, been severely assaulted by their family? We've had friends that have had to go into hiding, seek police protection in the UK from their family because of their apostasy or because of maybe they're gay or whatever. So as this whole issue of the Sharia courts makes it even more difficult because again it's emphasizing that there is legitimacy, that there is authority in within the communities that operate these structures. It's a very entrenched problem.
I don't actually think it is the violence. Not that the violence doesn't exist. The violence does exist, but I think it's not because of the violence mostly that this happens.
Sure.
Mental chain. I think mental chains are actually more powerful than physical chains, right? And humans are social animals, and our identity within a society and our position within a society and how society looks at us, especially the society that we were brought up in, that we associate with, that we connect our identity with, um, our position within that society matters more to us than anything else. It matters more than food, more than comfort, more than not experiencing physical pain. Nothing matters to humans more than how the society that we are brought up in looks at us. Nothing is more important than that. And if you are brought up in an Islamic society, then you're mentally being hardwired to care about maintaining that identity and maintaining that position within that society, and you don't want to disappoint.
No, I completely agree. I wasn't trying to make it sound like that's the main disincentive, but
Mm,
I wouldn't be surprised if I'm basically trying to emphasize that it's likely an additional barrier.
right,
Like the consequences of apostasy can be so severe, even in the UK.
right, yeah,
I mean, there's been people
yeah,
tracked down and assaulted for being ex-Muslim. Famous
yeah.
cases in the
You're
UK.
correct. You're correct. But I do want to add that even I would argue that if you're talking about a Muslim who's doubting and thinking about leaving Islam, I would think that the feeling of being a disappointment to the community, or to his or her parents, or some people that he or she cares about, is more painful than even the threat of physical harm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair. I mean, I have
Mm.
friends that are here in the States and they actually have like a very like relatively really liberal Muslim parents, very free lives, relatively like independent. I mean, they're young, but um full-blown ex-Muslims, but they just don't want to tell their parents because they just don't want to disappoint their parents or have them worry about them and I that's normal. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I'd be really curious to hear what our like community thinks about this. I don't even know how you go about addressing this. Um Yeah, I highlighted some comments, but I think I already said what I wanted to say. Um,
Okay. Do you want to do the comments that
yeah.
D highlighted? So we have one. Should I scroll up first, or do you want to? You already
Yeah,
know the
this
content.
person was reacting to a story about this, which is saying, "Honestly, this is going to destroy the West. We're gonna need another crusade if things do not change." Well, that's a little extreme. Um,
You know, can I criticize myself? I used to think that saying, "Oh, Sharia is going to come in the UK" was hyperbole, right? But this news story shows that I was wrong.
oh, the whole creeping Sharia thing?
Yeah, I thought creeping Sharia, like I like, yeah, Islamism in the UK is a huge problem, but talking about creeping Sharia is an exaggeration. And I just want to admit that I was so wrong. That was not an exaggeration. That was not an exaggeration. We're seeing it happen.
Yeah.
So I
You
was
really
wrong.
have to talk
I
about it on
was
a case-by-case basis, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't apply everywhere.
right. Yeah. So this one.
Yeah, this person's saying, "Why the F are they allowed to have a parallel society?" And this is I guess it's a matter of religious freedom.
No, it's not. It's not like it's not.
I mean, in terms of, like,
This
how has it been allowed?
but this is not religious freedom. This is religious privilege. If I say like, oh, I want to practice law without being a lawyer, without having to get the proper credentials to practice law, I will go to jail. But if I say like, oh, I'm a Muslim and I want to practice Sharia, like, okay, sure, religious freedom. That is not religious freedom. That's religious privilege.
No, no, I think a closer parallel would be, like, you establish a new ideology and a set of rules around those ideologies and decide to practice, like, jurisprudence within your own new like,
No,
system.
no. Practicing a religion is only religious should be allowed under religious freedoms if it doesn't interfere with the my rights, my freedoms, and the legal structure of the nation. That this is not part of religious freedom. I don't think this is part of this is absolutely not. This should be a crime above all crimes. This is a crime that is going to the roots of your legal structure. This is the most important crime. This should be considered criminal more than even murder, I think, because everything all the other yeah, no, like because all the other crimes that you have is defined as a crime based on the legal structure that this is challenging the legal structure that you have in a country. It should be a crime above any other crime. Even if you even if they manage to be like, oh, religious freedom, give us our own legal structure. Even if they manage to do that, which they shouldn't, it should be something that the government creates for them and approves, like with a like, I don't like that. But even if they manage to get that, it should be like something in Israel, for example, where you have Islamic courts. Again, I hate that, okay, but at least that is better than what we have here, that you just go practice law on your own. Like, no, what the hell? That's a crime. That's a crime for everybody except these guys. This is not religious freedom. I mean, yeah, that's
I don't know. I mean, if you choose to like follow the authority of the Catholic Church and you want to get a divorce and the Catholic Church rules that you cannot get an annulment, then you are still married under the Catholic Church. And if you choose to follow that, how can we stop
so
them from following that?
no, okay, so no. So giving moral advice and what creating something that is law we can tell what it's it's I know there's not a hard line in between them, but legal experts can come up with an, like, it's easy for us to note that this is now getting from, hey, these are some moral advice, to actually creating law, right? uh, there's enforcement, there's pressure, there's a structure, there are things that look like lawyers, there are people that look like they're lawyers, there are people that look like they're judges, there are institutions that look like courts, right? So if somebody comes and like, hey guys, don't eat pork, it's a sin, sure, do that, okay? But then if you go from, well, we are going to have these places where if somebody eats porks will be brought to this place, and somebody will defend him, and somebody will charge, like, make arguments against them, and there's another man that is going to be deciding whether or not this guy did commit the sin of eating pork or not. And if that guy did decide that, then there's going to be some punishments associated for this person. They're like, okay, this is a court, that's a judge, this is a lawyer, that's a lawyer. This is not just moral advice anymore. This is law. You might not call it law, but it looks like it sounds like law, it smells like law, it looks like law, it is law. You're all practicing law, right? So yeah, your religious freedom allows you to say, guys, don't eat pork, it's a sin. That's your religious freedom. But all of these institutions, all of these people, this is not just advice anymore. This is law. That's the difference.
Yeah, I think we just have a big problem because, like, Abrahamic religions have a lot of religious law that goes beyond morality, goes way beyond morality
Yeah. Well, if it
or
starts looking
values.
like a law, it should be stopped. It should be banned.
Mhm.
It should be illegal. That's my position.
Yeah.
Okay. What about this
D is right. Bacon is above all law. It is delicious.
one?
Dude, pork in general, why does pork have to be so flippin' good? It's unreasonable. Yeah, so Polly was saying Sikhs don't form parallel societies in the UK as much as Muslims do, better integration into labor markets, unemployment, higher education, etc., etc. People can still form high control communities and societies and bring in a lot of very damaging cultural practices, particularly towards women and girls. I mean, but people need to understand that if you're going to go towards banning a Sharia council, like, you are going to be banning the Sikh courts. Because wait, there was someone else. Yeah, Danny just celebrating his membership, saying there's Sikh courts as well. So that's gonna go. Like,
Good
practices
stuff.
of Jewish law and
Good.
arbitration are gonna go. And I think if you tried to
Good.
do that, like, people would flip out.
Let them flip out. What the hell? I'm sure we're gonna find. Here's the thing: we have so many secular Jews that will be welcoming that we will just get them to come and speak out. If somebody wants to call this anti-Semitic, we'll just gather all the secular Jews in one place, and them arguing for it are like, oh, I guess these are, yeah, we could do something like that.
No, I don't
There's
think
enough.
that's gonna be
Here's the
good
thing.
enough. I'm gonna be honest. I think there's not even close to enough political capital to do anything about this
I
in a
Yeah,
consistent
I agree
way.
with you. I agree with you. I,
Yeah.
I'm saying what should be done. I'm not saying it would be done. There is no, they, yeah, it's, I don't want to say this, but I think it might be too late for the UK. So yeah.
Um,
But anyways, but when it comes to Jews, we have the Jewish people are some of the most secular, like on average, are some of the most secular people in the world, right? So I'm sure we're going to be able to find enough Jewish support for such a thing.
um, okay, let's do the super chats. Kenny gave a super chat. Thank you so much, my friend. Happy New Year. Um, Dan gave a super chat. Thank you, Dan, saying the best way to reduce Islamic integration is to ban halal meat, ban male circumcision in a society. Again, you're never going to do this because the Jewish community will flip out.
I
Um,
mean, Susie, they did that in Denmark. They banned both
yeah, and
halal meat
people
and
were calling
kosher.
it anti-Semitic.
But they still, I know they did, but the law is still there.
I'm just
The
saying.
people were
I'm
like,
just saying that these are some challenges.
Yes, but
I'm
I'm
starting
just
to
saying Denmark
understand
managed.
what people are talking about when they talk about these Abrahamics. We Dharmics, we don't do this.
Just what? Maybe with
Like,
cows they do.
I'm just being realistic. If we there would be also a big backlash from the Jewish community.
Yeah, and that should be responded to as well. And of course, okay, here's the thing, that the challenge, nobody's denying the challenge. The challenge is going to even be more severe from the Islamic community. Like, both of the challenges will be there. Okay, I mean, at least with the Jewish challenge, you're not going to, nobody's going to go choppy on you. There's just going to be angry letters calling you anti-Semitic. The main challenge is going to be from the Islamic community, which might go violent. Well, actually, which will go violent. I mean, angry letters, we could handle angry letters. It's the choppiness that we have to be worried about.
Yeah, but with all things considered and all forces combined, like, we're outnumbered.
Oh
Um,
yeah, we are. To save the U.S.,
Dan
Europe is gone.
Dan gave a super chat. Thank you, Dan. Saying require all, I think I think he means Muslims, seeking to immigrate to the West to draw a cartoon of Muhammad and post it on their social media profiles. Gotta blaspheme to immigrate. Uh Again, I like to talk about like realistic solutions. Thank you for the super chat, because we should be pushing for things that are actually pragmatic and serve the most utility instead of pushing for things that are not actually going to be efficacious. And that is my polite way of saying that this is a bad idea.
I think Dan
um,
is joking, though.
but I never know. Okay.
Yes.
Oh my God, she's back. Angel
Oh,
LR.
hi, Angel.
Angel, member for 13 months. Sounds very dangerous to free thinking. Hi, Atheist Republic. Angel, you never
Oh,
emailed me. And I was
yes.
upset. Angel,
Oh.
please email me. Susanna at atheistrepublic.com. I wanted to
Susanna at
check
Atheist
up on
Republic.
you.
Yeah,
I was
Susanna
worried
written
about
like that.
Angel.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Please, Angel, email me.
Yeah.
Happy New Year. It's good to see you. Okay. um Dan gave a super chat saying Khalistani Sikhs do have a high control society within Canada. Yeah, sure. Control of all
What are you
temples where
talking
they
about?
celebrate the Air India bomber Sikh extremists. Really crazy. Yeah, no. My God. I don't even know what to say. As someone who's not religious, I'm freaking exhausted by high control religious nut job.
Oh god.
People try to make it about like where people come from kind of thing. They like turn it into a xenophobic thing. I'm like, high control religious environments in general cause so many problems for society. It drives me insane.
Do you know who makes the most amazing, gorgeous, and other adjectives that I can't use here on YouTube, blasphemous art ever? We do! And for some reason, we are giving it away for free. Download them now using the link in the description before we change our mind.